Hello, everybody, and welcome back to day number 7 of Raging Reveals, where every single day we're going to go through all of the announcements for Leagues 5 as we count up to the launch date on November 27th. Yesterday, we saw the announcement of all of the teleport relics that will change how you travel across the map, and we knew that today 2 titans of Leagues would be coming back, and they were absolutely not lying. Today's announcement will surely have back and forth discussion across all forums. So hold on tight, today's reveal is a banger. Did I say banger or did I mean Banker's Note? Because Banker's Note is coming back to Leagues 5. You'll be able to note and unnote items from your inventory, which just opens up a world of insane possibilities, including being able to bring a whole refrigerator with you into combat. Or you can choose Total Recall, a fan favorite that's coming back that'll allow you to choose any coordinates and teleport back to it. And on top of that, you'll also restore all of your special attack, hit points, and your prayer when you teleport back. It's like an ornate pool built into one relic. I've always said that these 2 relics are so insanely good that they could never be balanced, so why not just throw them into one tier and now you have to pick between them. Now, if you haven't played previous Leagues before, you might not realize just how broken these 2 relics are and how much they warp different parts of the game because of the new strategies and the new methods that they enable. There's a reason why I put both of these in S tier when I ranked all of the relics from previous Leagues. They really are in a tier of their own, and that's why I think it's kind of fitting to put them up against each other. And I love the text about how there's only one correct choice because I am sure that there will be a lot of diehard defenders for one side or the other. So have fun debating about this because it is going to be a tough pick, I think. So Banker's Note, again, this allows you to note and unnote items pretty much anywhere in Gielinor. The actual Banker's Note item has a lot of customization that you can use to really make it a lot easier to use. So you can instantly unnote a full inventory of uncut gems, or maybe you're doing a boss and you just want to unnote 5 sharks so you don't clog up your whole inventory, but you still have access to that food. It really is such a simple relic, but the possibilities here are just endless. It helps you with gathering, you're not going to have to go bank. It helps you with production because you can basically do bank standing anywhere in the world, even when you're doing other activities. I remember doing a ton of fletching and herblore training and crafting training in the middle of a pest control game while everybody else was doing all the work. Please don't rat me out to the Void Knights. Okay, I was doing my part too. Sometimes I would be killing a boss and then while waiting for it to respawn, I would just go and cut an inventory of gems. This thing is actually so ridiculously good. So it's really good for skilling. It's really good for questing and inventory management. But it just enables so many different new methods that are just completely there's no alternative to them. You could basically do one tick rune crafting where you're unnoting all the rune essence, clicking on the altar, and as long as you're fast enough with your clicks, you're getting 99 rune crafting in an hour. It is so absurd. I remember using this at the mage training arena and bringing in 10,000 noted bananas and then turning them all in without having to actually engage with that activity. It just saves so much time. You could even bring noted weapons and armor to Antrana and then go start a massacre there. I absolutely do not endorse, but it is an option. When it comes to Banker's Note, it's not about what skill does this help. It's really about what skill does it not help because it literally does everything. Who needs a butler when you're doing construction when Banker's Note just does it for you? Where do you get butlers again? I think it starts with a K. But the most ridiculous thing is I don't think that that's even what makes Banker's Note an S tier relic. That's right. Everything I just described is the fluff part about Banker's Note. I always call this relic the refrigerator because what this allows you to do is bring in an unbelievable amount of food and prayer potions and any other supplies when you're actually doing PVM. Now, I get it. You're a god gamer. You've got your Zuck helm. But a lot of people do use Leagues as a way to get into PVM and try out new bosses, especially with the new Echo bosses. That's going to be a huge draw for a lot of players, and Banker's Note will allow you to bring in as much supplies as you want. You're not going to be restricted to your inventory like traditional PVM is balanced around. I know for me that this really dropped kind of the skill floor of what I would need to go ahead and do things like raids or Inferno, because while those pieces of combat do have mechanics that will just one-shot you if you make a mistake, they are also kind of tests of endurance. And you can afford to basically make as many small mistakes as you want, as long as you remember to like hide behind a pillar and just eat up. It does take a little bit of time getting used to the inventory management with Banker's Note. Like sometimes you'll accidentally unnote an entire inventory of prayer potions and it's like, oh god, what do I do with all these? I needed those sharks instead. But man, when you figure it out, it is just so fun. It almost feels like you're playing like a turn-based, JRPG where like as long as you remember to heal, your character doesn't really die, And I think at like really pinnacle content, Banker's Note is still really fun to use because it actually allows you to bring way more gear swaps. Like you can bring in more situational items that help you with like very niche parts of a raid. And as long as you have like 1 or 2 inventory slots open, you can still get all the benefit of like unnoting an infinite food stack, basically. Okay, so not infinite, you will have to like actually go and get all those supplies yourself. But I mean, Animal Wrangler is looking really popular. You'll get a ton of fish there. And Golden God will actually allow you to buy noted fish, so you probably use that to buy yourself like a huge stack of Karam ones. I just realized that this probably means we're not going to get Banker's Note up against Golden God, which is like this year's version of Fire Sale. I don't really see them putting this in the same tier, so you could kind of get the benefits of both Fire Sale and Banker's Note this year. That is kind of exciting. Okay, so we have an insane relic. It is beyond broken. What could possibly go up against this relic? That's right, the King of Leagues, Last Recall. There are a couple relics in Leagues that are so good that going back and playing the main game just feels almost awful without having that power. Last Recall in Leagues 2, which would save your spot when you teleported and then you could instantly teleport back, was so damn good that there were people like straight up re-rolling after the first couple of days because they realized what a big mistake they made not picking Last Recall. And it was so good that they just had to make a default in Leagues 4 because like who's not going to pick Last Recall? I know everybody was expecting these relics to come back with some kind of nerf. Well, guess what? The Leagues team decided to absolutely cook and make it even better. That's right, we're getting Total Recall, an even stronger version of Last Recall. So just like before, you'll be getting the Crystal of Echoes. God, it's nostalgic just looking at this thing. But the big change here is that you'll be able to store your coordinates, the exact tile that you're on, and then activate the crystal to teleport back to those coordinates whenever you want. However, it doesn't just save your position, it saves your position in time itself. You'll also be recalling back to whatever hit points, prayer, special attack energy, and stats that you were at when you saved those coordinates. One of Last Recall's best use cases was when you were doing bosses. You could dump all your special attack energy on a boss, especially with any special attack relic. We've already seen the Dog Sword, which combines all the God Sword specials. Like, it's so obvious we're going to be getting a special attack relic. And then you would just teleport to your house, restore everything with an ornate pool, and then teleport right back to the boss with Last Recall, which had saved your position, and just repeat that cycle. Back in Leagues 2, this completely broke the game, and people would spec out the bosses at God Wars Dungeon, kill them in like 10 seconds. Who cares how much damage you took from all those minions? You would just teleport to your house, restore everything, and then Last Recall back. And this actually allowed you to skip kill count at God Wars Dungeon, which was so ridiculous at the time. They just had to give everybody the option to skip kill count. And even in Leagues 4, I use this item so much at God Wars Dungeon. Step into the instance version, teleport out, restore everything, and get right back into the fight in seconds. But here's the thing, now you don't even need an ornate pool in your house, or the Ferox Enclave, or the statue in the desert that restored everything. Now, Total Recall just instantly does that for you. This means that you could save your coordinates right outside of Commander Zilyana's room with full health, full prayer, full special attack, start up an instance, and as soon as Zilyana doesn't drop that Armadillo crossbow that you're looking for, teleport straight back out and start up a new one, like right away. Now, of course, you're probably thinking about the cooldown restriction. Oh, wait, there's no more cooldown on Total Recall. That's right, you don't have a cooldown on this thing. You can use this as much as you want. And they've also said that the animation is a lot faster now. It's like instant teleports, basically. So this thing is going to be so much fun to use. I want you to also think about what this means in a fight. Let's say I walk up to Cerberus, and before I start the fight, I save my coordinates with full everything. Now, at any point in the fight, I can recall back to that coordinate and instantly restore everything. Who cares about the ghosts chewing away at my prayer or standing in fire when at any click I can restore everything back up to full? This means that outside of instances, you have enabled God mode with this relic. Like, you just cannot die unless you forget that this thing exists. That's the key thing, though. It does not work inside of an instance. That's another really cool thing about Total Recall and saving a specific coordinate, is that it won't actually be replaced by other teleports. So let's say you decide to do a farming run in the middle of all your combat. Well, teleporting to all those patches won't actually overwrite those coordinates as it did with last recall. Because again, you're saving a specific position. Everybody that's used last recall knows how bad it feels when you accidentally teleport twice and overwrite your position. And then you got to do like the walk of shame back to God War's dungeon. It feels awful. That alone is pretty massive because goddamn, I was really bad at forgetting that. And my chat would just laugh at me nonstop every time I'd have to run it back. Although to be fair, now you have to remember to save your coordinates before you teleport away. So I know I'm going to be messing that up just as much. You know, some things never change, huh? Okay, I've talked about God War's Dungeon a lot, but just like Banker's Note, Total Recall does have a lot of uses outside of that. Sure, while you're skilling, Banker's Note will allow you to note any resources you gather, but like Total Recall, you could just teleport to a bank, deposit everything, insta-teleport back. It's kind of the same thing here, and I think that faster animation of Total Recall is going to feel really good to use. I already know how lazy I'm going to be with this relic. Instead of walking from Varrock Bank to the Varrock Anvils, I'm just going to teleport to a bank and then last recall back to the anvils. Things like barrows are made trivial when you can save your coordinates to the barrows crypt at the very bottom. And this allows you to skip doing the whole maze and makes things like killing one brother and then teleporting downstairs to the chest a really fast strategy. And even if you had the clue compass and you could teleport to the stash down there, well, now you could set your total recall to actually teleport you just upstairs at the top of the mounds. You might not have access to the barrows teleport from the Arceus spellbook, so this will actually be really handy. And I could see barrows just being so fast when you combine the two. Like, it'll just be jumping back and forth. It's going to be so much fun. Especially if your region has a lot of quests. Last Recall's really nice here as well. Sure, Banker's Note allows you to save some inventory space, but usually the problem with quests is not your inventory, but the fact that you have to run around the entire world. And even though this might not work with every single quest area, you'll still get a ton of benefit from Total Recall when you can teleport out to some random space for a quest. Especially with all the insane teleport relics we saw yesterday, I feel like people are just going to be like poofing in and out of existence. Like, it's just going to be a lot of fun to watch. I know somebody watching right now is already planning on saving their position at like Ardeo in the Wildy with 1 hit points and Darox on, and then just like randomly recall back and try to one-shot some noob doing their task. It's going to be so chaotic and I can't wait to see it. However, we need to talk about Total Recall's big restriction, and that's that it cannot store coordinates while you're inside an instance. Now, for some things like God War's Dungeon, this isn't the biggest problem because you'll just be able to save your coordinates right outside of that instance. However, it does mean that Total Recall will not be helpful for longer endurance checks like Banker's Note is. So this is things such as raids, fight caves, the Inferno, the Colosseum, which I know a lot of people are interested in this year. And even certain tasks like killing the God War's Dungeon bosses like 30 times in one instance. I don't know if that's still coming back as a combat achievement. Total Recall won't really help you there in any capacity. You're not going to get that God mode benefit of just instantly restoring all your stats. Whereas Banker's Note is the refrigerator. You can pack in as much food and as much supplies as you want. This is a big downside to Total Recall, and while it is more beneficial when you are able to restore your stats at a whim, Banker's Note is giving you that benefit where Total Recall can't, especially considering that most instances are the hardest content in the game. I'm not saying you can't do Inferno without Banker's Note. It's still going to be a lot easier than the main game, but Banker's Note really does trivialize a lot of content when you can bring in as much supplies as you want. Almost to a fault, as I think it makes some of the content a little too easy, where it's just not even that fun anymore, where your mistakes just don't matter at all. Don't forget that all of the Echo bosses this year will be in instances as well. So while you will be able to use Total Recall to teleport just to the start of the instance, Banker's Note will actually help you inside of the instance. And if you are really worried about things like the Colosseum and the Inferno, this is probably going to be the better pick. Now, to be fair, those challenges do also have some, one-shot mechanics. Banker's Note is not saving you from getting hit by a Zuck, but I do consider it to be a pretty substantial part of Banker's Note and something you should consider. Okay, I've glazed these relics for long enough, but let's be real, I know what you're here for, alright? You don't have to hide it. Which one of these two is the better pick? And luckily, there is an objective better pick here. I mean, we all kind of know it. I talked about it before. And I think the obvious answer is just whichever one you have the most fun using. No, I'm kidding. I know you want the real answer. Don't get me wrong. They're both strong. You can use both of them. You'll be fine. But Personally, I think that Banker's Note is probably the better option for this choice. And that's largely because of its use cases at instances as well, which means that the real like pinnacle content of the game, which is all in instances, all of the echo bosses are instances, raids, Inferno, you won't get the benefit of Total Recall inside of that instance, whereas Banker's Note will actually give you that option. Again, you won't need Banker's Note here, but like, I want to go and fight some of these echo bosses, and I might not have the stats to take them on. Well, if I go in there with, 5,000 sharks, I think I'm going to find a way through. And I know some people have been worried about the possible difficulty of the echo bosses. I don't think that they're going to be like impossibly difficult to do, but I do understand, some people just don't have a lot of experience. They use leaks as a way of getting that experience. And so I think Banker's Note is just going to be the safer option here. That's going to help you get through that. And in addition, the noting and unnoting items anywhere just means that you can get some of your other skills done as well if you're like really trying to be sweaty. I know that pretty much everybody going for like top 100 is going to be going for Banker's Note just because you'll be able to note and unnote all of your bank standing skills. So they'll essentially complete all those in like 0 time. Obviously, most of us don't care to be that efficient, but it's still really nice when you have a little bit of downtime when a boss is respawning or you're playing pest control, and you just do other things that you're really not supposed to inside the boss room. But I don't know, maybe you just want a Total Recall to the start and open up a new instance right away and kind of get going. Remember, we had Banker's Note and Last Recall last year, so Banker's Note players never got to experience a leagues without Last Recall. And while they do kind of step on their toes a bit, I think that this new buffed version of Total Recall is excellent. It also means that you're not going to have to actually gather all those supplies. Like, yeah, you can chew through 500 sharks, but you're going to have to go and get those sharks. Whereas with Total Recall, I mean, kind of have like a free restore always in your pocket. And because of that, I think I'm going to be going with Total Recall. Banker's Note is a great relic, and I'll probably go back and forth on this decision, let's be real. But one of the problems that I had with Banker's Note is once I actually got it, and once you could use this, it really just felt like, okay, don't forget to eat. And my favorite part about Leagues is taking on new PVM challenges, and with the new Echo bosses, that's what I'm most excited about. I want to challenge myself with these bosses. I don't want to just feel like, I can rely on an entire refrigerator to carry me through these fights. And every single time I kill an Echo boss, I can just Total Recall to the start and go again. Especially with things like Echo Hunlift not requiring prep phase or Echo Soul not requiring you to do the waves. I feel like I'm just gonna have way more fun with Total Recall, where I can just grind out a boss over and over and over again. I don't need Banker's Note to carry me through the waves if I only plan on doing the waves of Colosseum like one time. And like, let's be real, with all the League's powers, I feel like I'm still gonna be fine taking on any challenge with a full inventory and full hit points and all that. So I just don't really see myself wanting to go with Banker's Note. Like, sure, I'm not gonna be able to mix potions as I do Slayer tasks, but like, is that something I really care for? Like, do I really want to cut gems in between all my attacks? I've already said how much I love Golden God because it auto-alks for you and you don't have to do that. And especially if like your regions don't have a lot of difficult instance content. Of course, they'll always have the Echo bosses. Again, this thing is just straight up God mode. You'll instantly be able to restore back to full. And I think it's just going to make PVM in the late game way more fun for me, while still remaining somewhat of a challenge without having to intentionally nerf myself to find the fun. I understand not everybody will agree with me here. It's fun to kill bosses like you're in God mode, like you're playing with cheats, but at a certain point, grinding them out for a couple hundred just gets a little bit boring. And so while I do think Banker's Note is the better relic, I think for me, I'm going to go with Total Recall. And I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to be regretting this decision. Every year, there's a huge battle between two relics, Clues and Slayer, Fire Sale versus Banker's Note. And with 10 days out from the launch, it's really cool to see this year's version of it because I'm sure there's going to be some strongly opinionated people in the comments below. Let me know what you guys are thinking about with these. I feel like this is going to be a really fun opportunity for the community to sort of, have a little bit of friendly discussion, a little bit of friendly debate. And I think this could be a pretty cool opportunity to reach out to a couple other content creators and kind of see what their thoughts are. Who knows, maybe they'll convince me to swap back to Banker's Note. Now that we've seen what's likely the most powerful relic tier we're gonna get this leagues, I think everybody's just waiting to hear about combat masteries. Are we gonna get one combat style? Is this gonna be a hybrid league? That's really the last piece of the puzzle left for me to really start solidifying my plans this year. So look out for some videos pretty soon regarding league strategy and planning out your regions. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with another reveal.